In between each of the readings, we will be singing a song that we know well. Each time we will sing just one part of it, and Kim and our choir will help us begin. So, flip it, Karen, please. We come from who? Let us sing. Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? We all come from many places. There are so many stories woven into a life, and the road we take is full of the places we've been and the people we've known. Though we live into this moment and the next, we are grounded in all the lives that have touched our hearts. Here is a story of people deeply touched by others. It is a reflection by Reverend Clyde Grubbs, and it will be spoken by Michael McAvinci.
My first memories are Dallas, Texas. World War II had just ended. I didn't know much about the meaning of that war, but words like GI, Nazi, and atom bomb were part of my earliest vocabulary that I learned from other children. The elders asked us not to use those words during family time. My family were Cherokee natives in a Jim Crow Texas. The world was divided between white and black, and I was told that we were neither. My grandmother was proud of her heritage and shared that pride with me. She taught me that the earth was the source of all life, and that I must respect and cherish this creation. She told me how the Cherokees had been forced out of their homeland in the Great Smoky Mountains, and how the government had broken treaty after treaty with Native peoples. For the most part, I was respectful of her wisdom, but she didn't approve of me going to the movies, because I would see the cowboys killing the natives and get the wrong idea. It took many years before I understood the wisdom of her caution. My mother was a nurse who had discovered Unitarianism as a teenager and loved liberal religion. She took to heart the ideas, and we believed that we should build or should live into those ideals. For her, opposing Jim Crow and racial prejudice were important ways to live as Unitarians. So two spirits have informed my life. One spirit has made me proud of being an Indigenous person and aware that our lands are occupied by a conqueror. That spirit urges me to be proud of my people and reach out in solidarity to others who have also been oppressed and misused. The other spirit has urged me to love and work with all people for a better world and a restored relationship with our Mother, the Earth.
We come from Even though we are part of all that has come before, our lives are ever changing. Who we are and how we are in the world may grow day by day. Ever winding, we take step by step. Our next reflection was written by the Reverend Fred Wooden and will be read by June Erdy.
Have to give me a minute on this one. My daughter was 13 blocks from the towers when the towers went down. It was a beautiful day, sunny and warm with a bright blue sky, the sort of day you see on postcards of New York City. Because it was so beautiful, there were lots of people on the promenade outside my apartment house. People loved the view of the harbor and the Statue of Liberty and the tall buildings of Lower Manhattan across the East River, especially the Twin Towers. It was September 11th, 2001. When the towers fell, making a terrible low sound, we didn't know what we should do, but we knew we had to do something. As the story of the attacks emerged, I knew that fear and anger would spread quickly. I did two things. First was to organize a service for that evening and put up signs around the neighborhood to invite people. It was a place to be angry and afraid, and also sad and safe. When we don't know exactly what to do, finding others who feel the same way is helpful. We need to find a way to be strong and hopeful. The second thing I did that day was walk down to the local mosque, the oldest in Brooklyn, where the imam and I were acquainted. We embraced, and I said we need to have a public prayer service on the promenade Sunday afternoon, where every religious leader would be present and we would stand together. The next few days I spent calling my colleagues, talking to the police about crowds, and telling people about the service. That Sunday, over 1,000 people came, many marching from the mosque as I did with the imam and other religious leaders. On the promenade, looking at the plume of smoke rising from where the twin towers were, we heard the shofar because the Jewish New Year was just 2 weeks away. The imam chanted from the Quran. Christian clergy prayed. Politicians came and wanted to speak, but we said no. This was a moment of prayer, and they do it every year on September 11th. The people of the First Unitarian Church became friends with the Islamic community nearby. Every year since, they have celebrated a Ramadan iftar together. I am no longer their minister. This is their ministry now. And in my current church, we celebrate Ramadan as we did there in Brooklyn, where we also need to feel strong and hopeful.
Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Sometimes we feel alone. Sometimes the road gives us a challenge or pain or deep sense of loss. When we feel lost, community can be the answer to our deepest needs. The meditation is by the Reverend Mark Bellatini. O love, be praised for the immense family of stars called the galaxy, which holds our sun in its embrace. Be praised for the family of moon and earth and sun which work together to make us a home. Be praised for the family of earth's 7 continents which lift us up into the sunlight and wonders of the night. Be blessed for the family of all peoples with their cultures, languages, struggles, joys, poetries, sexualities, and devotions, which bless us with identities both accepted and resisted. Be blessed for the dream of peace in the nations, peace in families of both blood and heart, an immensity of love which illuminates me and illustrates you, O love. And so now, blessed in the amen of our lives, the great yes to all the families which have brought us to this hour and this day as exactly who we are. For this congregation, this is a time of many transitions. Some of us are joyful. Some of us are in pain. Let us remember that we hold both in our hearts. We hold all of these people, all of us, with us, cherishing their good times and pleading with them for their sorrows. We enter into a time of sharing of our joys and concerns silently. We light a candle. Some of us will go to our book and write a little description of your expression of joy or sorrow so that we can share it with the larger community. After that time, we will have a moment of shared sacred silence and break it with Spirit of Life softly sung. Those of you who have been practicing the hand movements to Spirit of Life, you are invited to come forward as we do that song. Sometimes we feel like we're too young or too old to accomplish something, or that we're just not ready to be the one who makes a difference, but helpers come in all sizes and all shapes. Our next reflection is by the Reverend Karen C., and Shauna Bell will read it for us.
In 2001, I founded International Bridges of Justice, an organization dedicated to protecting the basic human rights of ordinary citizens in developing countries. The journey begins with a young boy who has become one of my many heroes for the work I do today. Not so long ago, as a lawyer working for the United Nations, I experienced a dramatic shift in my perceptions of approaches to international human rights and issues concerning the detained and imprisoned. Vishna, a 4-year-old boy who was born and lived in a Cambodian prison, is my favorite hero. Because he was born in the prison, the guards knew him his entire life, and they grew quite fond of him, and they allowed him free range in the prison. He was small enough to climb through the bars. When I met him, though, he was getting a little older and could no longer get through the bottom rungs of the prison bars. He could climb up to the 3rd bar, which was slightly bigger, then slowly turn his head to the side, and then find a way to barely pass through the bars to the other side. Every day I went to the prison, he would go through this process so that he could run out to meet me. Then he would take my hand and go with me to each and every prison cell. At each of the 156 prison cells, he would reach his little finger or hand in to make contact with the prisoner. For most of them, he was their greatest joy. In this boy, I saw thousands like him who would be the direct beneficiaries of a functioning criminal justice system with a standard of basic human rights. Therefore, International Bridges of Justice works to guarantee all citizens the right to competent legal representation, the right to protection from cruel and unusual punishment, and the right to a fair trial. I often think of Venetia, a boy born in a prison without material or physical comfort, a boy who had a sense of his own heroic journey and desired to give up a piece of his life to something greater than himself. I think of the contributions he made to the prisoners' wretched lives, both on an individual level, as he reached his hand so many times, and also the contributions he made to human rights through me. For he was often gave me the strength when I was not sure why I should continue on. His heroic spirit and journey to reach behind the bars of injustice is open to us all.
As we have heard through these stories, these are the stories that have helped shape the lives of the people. At this point, I would like to invite you to think about the people who have helped you on your spiritual journey. I wonder, who has helped you become who you are in the world today? And I wonder how they helped you. We would like you to take a moment to think about your teachers. And as you think, if the students will please come forward for me. I would like to take this time to recognize our UUCF teachers. They have spent many hours this year helping our students learn about the rich history of Unitarian Universalism. If each of our teachers would stand as I call your name. Carrie Hoffman, Mary Rose Carl, Maria Studer, Mandy Maxstroth, Wendy Hargraves, Bonnie Pobosik, Frank Rossman, Lisa Rossman, Terry Cross, Chris Monk, John Straw, and Ray Rust. Okay, give one to each person. Thank you. Thank you so much for the time, energy, and commitment you have put into our students this year. If you will help me with a round of applause for our teachers.
Mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Helping doesn't always mean doing something to make a difference. Sometimes we're the most helpful when we simply listen and support those struggling on their journey. Sometimes the best way to help is just to love and be open to the new. Our next reflection is by the Reverend Mikhail Slack and will be read by Michael Rust.
"4 days before Easter, during my second year of seminary, I sat down at my desk, wrote a letter to all the students, faculty, and staff, and terrified, hit send. I wrote about the name I'd been using to refer to myself since childhood and all the things that went into living my life as the man I knew I was called to be. I shared resources for deeper education and understanding about being trans. And before I knew it, I was also writing about how I connected to notions of resurrection and how stepping into the uncharted territory of disclosure in a predominantly Christian institution was stepping out on faith. Because they were part of my chosen family, I needed them to know. And in the weeks that followed, I received over 100 cards and letters of support, lots of flowers, and a commitment from the administration to journey with me through name and gender marker changes, which they did. I even got an impromptu, not entirely on point, but still cute, tutorial from some of the CIS guys in my class on how to be the best guy I could be. I realized that becoming my truest self, despite not knowing what lay ahead, was what having faith was all about, and the best way to grow in that faithfulness was in community. Sometimes, when my state of the world is bringing me down, I need to pull out that letter. I'm reminded of how much I have grown and the possibilities for living life anew that surround me. I'm reminded of the beautiful impact that my seminary community had on deepening my faith and how intentional connection with folks can grow us all more powerfully into our own becoming. And then I can have hope that we can actually meet each other where we are, and by faith, we can do the work of bringing ourselves into the light of a new day.
People say that Unitarian Universalism is an easy faith to belong to because, hey, there's nothing that you have to believe in. Hey, you can believe anything that you want to. How many of you really think that Unitarian Universalism is your easy faith? How can that be? She asks, wide-eyed. Each of these stories have pointed to a time when one had to figure out what to do, had to be their best selves, had to be true and honest with themselves, had to look to the wider community to share and to love. These are not easy tasks that we have set before us. And yet, each and every one of us in our own way has decided that this is the faith that we want to follow. We want to examine. We want to decide, to look, to read, to think, and figure out what has meaning. And when it has meaning, what do I do about it? And how can I be true to that faith? Now, it's true that in the everyday life of shopping and cooking and working and going to school and taking care of kids and grandparents and ourselves and our health, most days we're living our faith. We're not really thinking about it, you know? What would my faith tell me to buy at the store today? Oh yeah, wait a minute now, hold on. Okay, let's see, I gotta be kind to the earth, so I've gotta buy this. Right, I mean, you can get into that. But most times, we don't. Is that really true? How many of you have passed by a store because you didn't agree with the way they were treating the earth? Huh? Yeah. How many of you have chosen what you eat because it's better for our bodies or better for the environment? How many of us have gone out of our way to make a point about something we felt strongly about, even when it was totally uncomfortable? Folks, that's living your faith. That's what we do. We are Unitarian Universalists.